Hello, everyone. So this is a pre-recording for my presentation. The title is Elements of Arabic Paragraph Structure, How They Affect the Translation Process. A contrastive study with French is a small part of a project that I am working on. I did this presentation in collaboration with Ghassan Mourad, who shared also his finding, especially about the history of the highlighting of different sections in Arabic manuscripts. So, excuse me, 1 second. Okay. So, the objective is of this presentation specifically is to emphasize the role of paragraph analysis in the translation process. It will show a brief historical overview of the paragraph in Arabic. So what we found so far. Theories of paragraph analysis, explanation of differences between Arabic and French paragraph structures through a contrastive analysis, and this is with the focus on the translation process. So how and why do we change the number of paragraphs when translating sometimes? Okay, so I will start by setting a definition for a paragraph. So for this presentation, when we talk about a paragraph, we are talking about a series of sentences with a logical sequence to graphically represent an idea, and that related to other paragraph constitutes a broader idea. Paragraph delimitations are, for French, of course, the capital letter and the alinea. For Arabic, it's the alinea alone. So this is not, of course, not invented. And each paragraph has specific theme and purpose inside a text. For the historical overview or the interest in the concept of paragraph in Arabic, it started in the late 19th century, early 20th century to improve the quality of Arabic print, to make it easier to read, and it was part to preserve Arabic cultural heritage. It was part of a project of protecting Arabic cultural heritage against the European colonial rule at the time by collecting and editing old Arabic manuscripts and then preparing them for print, so to make them easier to read. So in original manuscripts, the beginnings of different sections, so sections or chapters, let's say, were marked either by a bold character or or a different color, especially the color red. And also the addition. So when we started editing, they also thought about adding numbers on the side for every 5 lines. So on the 5th line, they wrote the number 5, then 10, then 15. And the reason for this was to facilitate finding information and different elements in the index, because when they edited the manuscript, they also added an index. So this is one of the manuscripts that Mourad found with a bold character. So, and it might be a replacement of or a sort of indication of what we call a paragraph today. As for punctuation manuals, Arabic punctuation manuals at the time, the indications of a linear as an element of separation. So as an element of separation, so the paragraph here, for example, preceded punctuation. And also, so separate elements of discourse, or the concept of separate elements of discourse, preceded punctuation. But here our interest is in the paragraph marked by an alinea. So in punctuation manuals, indications of the alinea as an element of separation and not an element of segmentation. So the paragraph or the alinea was an element of separation, and the process of separating the text was called al-qata', which indicated, according to the punctuation manuals that set the rules of punctuation, that indicated a separation in the text. So not there was no the concept of relating ideas or connection using the alinea or paragraphs was not present. And as for the current word used for paragraph, it's the word fiqra. So it is as a metaphor with the word vertebra, which is the denotational meaning for fiqra. And this metaphor indicates the connection between paragraphs in order to create a text. So, but I haven't found yet how the concept evolved from qata, or separation, cut. Qata means to cut in the sense of separate, and between fiqra. So how the concept evolved, I'm still searching for documentation that will help me track this evolution. So as for the modern paragraph, previous works were either from a didactic perspective, so describing and analyzing foreign students or Arab students' writings in French or in English, and their teachers' remarks regarding the lack of logic and the lack of cohesion when they wrote in English or in French, and attempting to explain this. And the other type of previous works on Arabic paragraph was an attempt to integrate philological Arabic studies, to which the biggest unit of analysis was the sentence, and apply it to textual and paragraph analysis, especially the works of Al-Jurjani, which is considered by these researchers as the founder of textual linguistics in Arabic, of Arabic textual linguistics, and also mentions of the statements and works of logicians like Al-Sirafi, and applying it to the paragraph or to the transmission of a complete meaning. So they try to apply their sayings and their statements into paragraph analysis, especially in the theme and dream organization. So theme and dream, usually there is a theme and dream in a sentence, and they try to extend it to the organization of theme and dream in paragraph, inspired by rhetorical analysis of a sentence. So to relate the linguistic theories with translation studies, usually when translating what is beyond a sentence, traductologists refer to structural linguistics, transformational grammar, and of course textual linguistics, especially the works of Jean-Michel Adam. And structural linguistics, according to the Prague School, transformational grammar as a complementary element or as an element that completes the deficiencies in structural linguistic analysis for translation purposes. So for structural linguistics and transformational grammar, usually the relationships or how they are related with translation studies is to compare the function of the source text and the source culture with the function of the target text and the target culture. So this is what Jean-Michel Adam calls the socio-discursive element in the text. And at the micro level, so to link different sentences inside the paragraph, analyzing intersentential relationships and the aesthetic form and changing it or changing the order and the form of a sentence of sentences in a paragraph to adapt them to the target paragraph. And this is a sort of deep structure analysis in order to produce a adaptable and acceptable surface structure. As for textual linguistics, the first traductologists that stated their importance in translation studies is Eugene Nida, because when he talked about the universals of discourse. So I will mention 6 universals here. So the first 3, the marking of the beginning of discourse, temporal and spatial relationships between events and objects, the identification of participants, and these do not change. The translator does not change these. And then the marking of logical relations between events, highlighting emphasis, and then the author's involvement versus the translator's involvement. And the final 3 are sometimes modified when the translator feels necessary. So from a linguistic perspective, when we analyze a paragraph, we analyze its cohesion, or the several paragraphs in a text. We analyze their cohesion and their coherence. So the cohesion are more explicit. So there are clear linguistic devices that create the cohesion in a text. So it is a linguistic phenomenon, and it is concerned with the logic of a paragraph using explicit linguistic elements. So at the micro level, we have the connectors. We have connectors that explicitly show logic between sentences or punctuation marks. And at the macro level, so how do we link separate paragraphs together? We have cohesive devices that show the logical arrangement of paragraphs in a text. And cohesive devices can be connectors. They can be repetition or certain expressions that act as that have a transitional role in the paragraph. So from a socio-discursive perspective, the study, the element of coherence is more implicit, and it is more cultural and social. There are more cultural and social implications in the creation of coherence. So the arrangement of ideas in an acceptable way, depending on the type of text, and in a way that connotes a continuity of the thought process in the text. So textual organization a large part of textual organization does not have clear linguistic rules. So, for example, we can organize a text in two languages the same way without making explicit linguistic mistakes, but the final result will be unnatural or will be strange because there is a coherence that is lacking and that is explicit. So translators, since they are usually translating into their native language, they are subconsciously aware of the sociocultural elements that create this coherence and that will make a text sound natural in the target language. So even though there are no clear rules, and making changes, and they make changes in paragraph structure accordingly. So how to set standards or how to set these rules? So first, we have to look at the similarities, the differences between Arabic and French paragraphs, and then the linguistic factors concerned. And I will show you this through a contrastive study of text translated from French into Arabic. And the corpus is from Le Monde Diplomatique, and we chose argumentative press text for this presentation. So the similarities, of course, are the alinea, the marking of beginning of discourse, the semantic marking of beginning of discourse, and general paragraph classifications are the same. So we have the propositional paragraph, the preliminary paragraph, the transitional paragraph, etc. The cohesive devices are respected. So there are differences. If we are not translating, cohesive devices can be different, but they are respected in translation mostly. And the identification of participants, of course, is respected. It's of course respected, but highlighting sometimes, as I will show you in an example, sometimes we highlight or give emphasis to a participant that that was secondary in the source text through a linear. And here by participant, I mean the theme. Okay, so when I will show you the example. So for example, sometimes in a French paragraph, there is a rime that is transformed into a theme in the Arabic paragraph. So a main element. The main differences is that at the micro level, one sentence paragraphs exist in Arabic. The transition between paragraphs is different, especially when we have one big paragraph that is translated into 2 or 3 separate paragraphs, and vice versa, for logical or semantic reasons. So this creates a difference in transition of ideas. So a transition of ideas, not a transition between paragraphs. So in the first example, we have, for example, here one big paragraph in French that was translated into 3 paragraphs in Arabic. So, and the elements that were separated in Arabic were marked by connectors, by me. And the reason is not only this. So this might be a reason for creating an alinea in Arabic. But when we analyze, we see that there is a change of participant in this. So the translator considered this paragraph as a change of participant, and he wanted to emphasize the element of Muslim minorities or speaking about Muslim minorities. So that was a rime in the French paragraph and a theme, and was transformed because we separated it into a different paragraph into a main theme of the text in Arabic. We also have logical logical reasons. The next separation that is different from the original was for logical reasons, and it was to explicitly or more clearly explain the text plan, or how the rest of the text is going, where the rest of the text is going, where the author is going. So here it is to explain the author's sequence of arguments and ideas, and also to emphasize the author's involvement in a way. So the translator found that it is so that the author's voice will be more clear if the section was separated into a different paragraph. We have a change of participant in the this example as well. So so a change of theme, but not for emphasis reason. It is just because the accent is different, or the main subject is different. So because the first subject is la droite américaine, so the American right wing, and then it changed to talk about the Constitution. So for the because there was this change of participle, or the involvement of the Constitution, and also a change in the way of speech. So as we see here, they talk in the second person, so the verbs are in the second person, and then we talk about an official reference, which is the American Constitution. So the separation of this paragraph into two paragraphs was necessary for the translator. And in the third paragraph, we have the alinea without a line break between these two paragraphs to create emphasis on the paragraph theme. Okay. Which is the theme is racist, anti-Semitic, etc. So the racist ideas, anti-Semitic ideas. So to emphasize these and to emphasize the author's point of view of these ideas, there was an alinea without a line break. And the separation of the last paragraph was because it linguistically changed into an example. So there was an example. So it is an example of what was said before, and to create an argumentative element in Arabic, there was a separation of this paragraph. So as a conclusion, I just want to say that the study of a paragraph in general, and in particular a contrastive study for translation purposes, is a complicated task for many reasons, because the paragraph is linguistic, it's logical, and it is visual at the same time. Aspect of thematic presentation. So linguistic analysis alone might not be enough, or might not explain some differences. So we have to add the logical and visual aspects. So cognitive analysis as well. The size of the original text has to be respected in the translation process. So it doesn't have to be very different, or to say at best the difference has to be unnoticeable. So therefore, changes in the number of paragraphs must be for legitimate reasons. And they are mostly logical and cognitive in the meaning of visual reasons. So it is a deliberate action in the translation process, not only to add a logically natural sequence of ideas, which is part of the transmission of the author's logical plan in a target language, but also to create emphasis where the translator feels needed, usually for sociocultural reasons, which is part of the translator's involvement in text creation. So this presentation, or what I presented to you today, is part of an ongoing project that merits further research to set standards for linguistic paragraph analysis at the micro level, and especially at the macro level, which is more difficult because at the micro level we can integrate the rules of sentence analysis to the rules of intersentential analysis in a paragraph. But at the macro level, we need to set linguistic standards. And for translators and also for educators. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Any questions? I see no question from the audience. Online? No questions.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dana.
You're welcome.